exactly what they're doing. The Dems know exactly what they're doing, and they're excellent at it. Absolutely excellent at it. And I'm not being sarcastic. I actually mean what I said, but let me explain. This is one of the dumbest things I hear from left-wing media, especially the young Turks. They love to talk about how the Democrats don't know how to win elections and they don't know how politics works, or things like this. Democrats are incompetent is what I hear from people like the Young Turks and other left-wing channels. I think Majority Report will say stuff like this. And it's like, how are you a political commentator? This is what you do for a living, and you don't even understand how politics works in this country. So let's examine the reality of those statements, right? Let's look at the statement, and then let's look at the evidence, right? So, how long has Chuck Schumer been in office? How long has Nancy Pelosi been in office? How long was Joe Biden in office? How long have the top Democrats been in office? The answer is decades. For decades, they've been making a ton of money. How much money have they made? Not just from their salary. What is their net worth? It's in the millions, many of them. So, you are telling me that a politician that's able to win elections for decades, right? To stay in office for decades, accumulate millions of dollars in net worth, that they don't know how politics works? That this is incompetence to you? How much millions do you have? How many elections have you won? How many of you are going to be able to stay if you have a decent job? Let's say you have a high-paying job. How many of you are going to be able to die in that job if you wanted to, right? Most of us, as soon as we get older, we're going to become victims of age discrimination. That's something that's creeping up on me. About to hit 50, and I know when I do interviews, I know people look at me, I'm the older guy. Luckily, I don't look that old, right? So that helps me out, but that's an issue for me. So, when age discrimination, hits me, I'm not going to be able to make the kind of money that I've been able to make in the past. My salary is going to drop, right? And it's going to be a whole different world. But these people, they could be 80 years old, still making all that money. 90 years old, doesn't matter. Have the best health care. How is it that you are telling me that Democrats don't know politics? They've been winning for decades. Who is in the chat? Jock is in the house. So it's just, I don't know, it's just a fundamental misunderstanding of politics. Like, for example, people would say the Democrats lost in 2024, right? If the Democrats lost in 2024, then why is it that AOC is still in government? Why is it that Nancy Pelosi is still in government? Why is it that just about every single Democratic Party leader is still in office and still making tons of money, still a politician, they're still in the party, right? They lost the White House, right? And they lost power of the Senate and the House. But they're still in office. And most of them who are in leadership roles, the key Democrats, will continue to be in office, will continue to easily win elections for decades to come, until they die. So tell me they don't know politics, right? If they didn't know politics, they would be losing elections, and the party would just have crazy turnover. Like Pelosi would have lost an election decades ago, and she's now in the private sector, whatever it is. Joe Biden would have been out of office a long time ago. All these key Democrats would have been out of office a long time ago. Losing the White House, like that's just That is basically one guy, Joe Biden, and one woman, Kamala Harris, or if you're a moron, Kamala Harris, Kamala, the Democrat Party, right? That's two people, right? Two people. That was the big loss in the election. Now, obviously, again, the House and the Senate, but it's not like the people in the House and the Senate, like they're just gone, right? I don't know what's the amount of seats that they lost or whatever it is, but generally speaking, the key players are still there. They ain't going nowhere, right? Look at AOC. Like, here's another thing. In the same moment that the Democratic Party is doing so poorly, right? I mean, both parties are not doing very well in terms of their approval ratings, but the Democratic Party is definitely not doing very well. They're not very well liked as a party. Their voters are not happy with them, right? But in that moment, as unliked as the party is, AOC is not worried about losing an election, right? Pelosi is not worried about losing an election. Pretty much all of the key Democrats, even as unpopular as they are, apparently they know something, right? Apparently they got something going because they're able to win their elections, right? Because if they didn't know what they were doing, then that means that other people would be able to come in and oust them, right? So the Democrats are incompetent. They don't know how to win elections or whatever it is. So that means somebody should be able to go into Pelosi's district and destroy her. When she's up for election, she loses because she doesn't know politics, right? So somebody who does know politics takes her spot. The other party, an independent or somebody, but apparently whatever they got going is so solid that no one can take them down, right? Now, again, obviously, some people lose their elections, but I mean, I think overall, the key Democrats have been winning elections for decades. They are very wealthy. They're very successful. They're living a wonderful life. Right now, the government is shut down, so, I guess they get to spend time with their family or whatever it is, right? The Democratic Party is out of office right now, so they don't have to worry about solving problems or anything. That's the best thing right now for the way our politics works, is free to be out of office. That's the whole thing. Like, you have people that talk politics and aren't even aware that losing an election in America is basically winning, right? Because when you're in office, it's a little bit more tricky for you to come up with excuses for why you're not delivering for the people, right? But if you're not in power, then you can just get along with just theatrics and just rhetoric and like, we gotta get back, gotta vote for us so we can stop the craziness that my opponent is doing or whatever, right? It's easy to just talk, because if anybody tells you anything, it's kind of like, well, we can't do anything, we're not in power, right? So it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like a vacation. That's what happens when the Democrats support lose an election, right? Whenever they win an election again, if they're able to win an election again, they're gonna have to work a little bit harder, because once you're in power, now you gotta put a little thought into it, right? You can't just because what's your excuse? Like, you're in power now, you made all these promises when you're out of power, so if you're not delivering, it's kind of like, what's going on, guys? Right? So they could at least put some thought into it. They need to deliver something. Like a Democrat, certain clowns online would tell you Democrats don't deliver anything. They deliver things, many things, certainly nowhere near what they need to deliver, but they have to deliver something. So you gotta put in enough work to actually be able to deliver something, even if it's crumbs, for the American people when you're in power. When you're not in power, what do you need to do? Just point out how the other party sucks and how the American people need to vote you in power so you can save the country and stop the Republicans from doing whatever. That's the best thing ever. You're making the same amount of money, And yet you don't really have to do any work because we're out of power. I mean, it's insane. So every time I hear the young Turks talking about, they say, you know, they don't know politics. I think, I don't know if it's a little bit naive, right? Um, if you're naive and you think that these politicians get into office to help the country and to help their voters, I'm not saying none of them do that, but if that's what you think in general that they're doing, as opposed to, you know, many of them it's just a job, right? We need to have a job to be able to pay our bills and to survive. So they chose this as a career path, right? So for many of them, it's just a job. So in terms of helping people, not helping people, it's not really something that they really think about, because all that really matters, if you're just looking at it as a job, is that you're able to keep that job. So as long as you feel that you're able to win elections, then it's kind of like, okay, we're good. We're good. So, and then there's also people who are in it for the money and the power and all this kind of stuff. I'm saying we had a bad signal there. So a lot of people are very selfish and very focused on themselves. And I don't know why there's this idea. I don't know why there's this idea that people think politicians are somehow, they're from another planet or something. They're this. So look at the job that you have wherever you work. I'm sure there are people that you work with that are lazy, that are selfish, self-centered. Um, when you commute to work or just drive on the road, I'm sure you see a lot of people that are very selfish. They don't signal, they cut people off, drive like jerks, just a lot of stuff. Drive on the road drunk. This is how a lot of people in this country behave, right? So when you look at politicians just as regular people, then you can understand that a lot of them are just themselves, which means as long as they're able to keep the job, they're good. That's winning, right? That's the winning. Keeping the job, you have the paycheck coming in, you got the benefits coming in, right? And again, imagine if you're working a job where you can go for 2 years, sometimes even 4 years, where you're not really able to do anything, but you still get paid. So imagine if you're I don't know what kind of job. You're like a painter, right? And you're like a salaried worker, so you're on staff or whatever, right? And then something happens where the contract, whatever, wherever you get the paint from, there's something wrong with the contract, and they say we're not gonna be able to get another contract for another 2 years. So for 2 years, you're a painter working for a company that doesn't have any paint, right? So you're getting the same amount of money, right? And all you have to do is, in that time, you just complain. Like, you come into the office and you just like, man, this sucks. How are we supposed to do our job when we don't have paint? Like, this is stupid, and they need to make these contracts, whatever. And that's it. You just come into work and you just say stuff and whatever. You don't do any painting because you don't have any paint, right? That's the Democrats right now. They can't do much of anything because they're not in power. Now, I don't want to give them excuses in terms of like not fighting back. There's definitely a lot of stuff that they can do, but in terms of the way that the system works, right? I think that they are able to easily get away with not really doing much right now, because it's kind of like, we're not in power. What are we supposed to do? Right? Again, that excuse doesn't work so much when you're in power. But again, the Democrats always win. The Republicans always win. I've never seen an election where the Democrats or the Republicans lose. Yes, there is we don't have the House or Senate, or we've lost the White House, but they're still in office. They're still, like, not all of them, obviously, but the overwhelming majority of the people in the party, every single election, they keep their jobs, they keep their salaries, right? And they even keep some level of power. Because even right now, as somebody who's in the Democratic Party, you still have some power, right? You may not have, you don't have the House or whatever, but you're a politician, you're a senator or whatever. Like, you have the power to do something, right? And it's not just rhetoric, right? Um, so I don't know. I just find it frustrating when after I hear these comments about that they don't know politics. They know politics very well, right? They know politics very, very well. I wish that I could come up with something where I can make the kind of money they're making and have the benefits that they have and be secure for decades. Like I don't know how to pull that off, but they do, right? That's what Jock says. Cenk knows how to get 7% in Democrat Party. Oh man, I told you to sell. I told you to sell out. A true lefty knows how to lose big. TYT brought us winners like Dave Rubin. Oh my goodness, Jimmy Dore. You see how Jimmy Dore is all gone left. He's like, I'm seeing like video after video, like, oh, Trump sold out the farmers. Now he did another video saying Trump something. Trump. Oh, I think it was about Candace Owens. Something about how because she did another video saying about she's very disappointed in him or whatever. Yeah, man. Kasparian figured out how to do product placement. Product being, this is why Democrats and the left are weak. I was actually just watching one of their videos, and I think another thing that's kind of frustrating with these folks, these YouTubers, is it's kind of an interesting phenomena. I don't think that people have really thought about. I've heard much discussions about it. Some of these people start being YouTubers at a very young age, right? I think Anna Kasparian falls into that that sort of world. I think Cenk as well. I don't know how young he was when he started, but he's definitely doing it for a very, very long time. I don't know so much about him. He's a little old school, but definitely Anna, when she started, she was very, very young. You look at people on Majority Report, the younger folks. I think Sam Cedar. I don't know his story, but let's put the older folks aside. But the younger folks, like let's say the under 30 folks, I think, who have been doing this a very, very long time. One of the issues is that I don't know what's the best way to describe it. It's like they live in a different world from the rest of us. And it shows some of their commentary, right? Like for example, Anna, I've noticed many times in her commentary when she talks about things like the corporate world and corporate jobs, and even when she talks about landlords and things, it really shows, that she doesn't really know what she's talking about. And I think part of that is that she doesn't have that experience, right? Think about like most of you that have normal jobs, right? You have normal jobs, you go through the experience of, job hopping and doing interviews and working at different companies, and these companies have their rules and they have the management structure. And I feel like someone like Anna, for example, hasn't had that kind of experience, right? It's been this YouTuber thing for so long, and that world is just very, very different. It's a lot more loose or free. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. It's just not quite the world that most of us live in. And to in my opinion, and I think some of the more extreme examples of this are actually the more successful that they get. When you look at people look at somebody like a Mr. Beast. I mean, he's made so much money. And he started when he was very, very young. Like, I wonder about his social skills and other types of skills. Just because, he, from a very young age, he was a teenager, I think, when he started doing his YouTube videos, and then he started getting all this money and all this power from that money. And I don't know, there's something about people that sort of skip out on a lot of the stuff that normal people go through, that we learn and deal with. Like even just the thing of like a normal person, you have to deal with authority, right? Very early. You're gonna work for a company. You need to to try to get hired, and then when you get hired, you want to keep the job and you want to build relationships with your manager and things like that. And you have to work with people that you don't like and whatever. That's a lot of stuff that a lot of us have had to deal with, and we grow from that. We mature with it. But as a YouTuber who's never dealt with any of that stuff, like you were always like your own boss. You always had all this money. You always had everyone around you that like a bunch of yes men, trying to get in on your thing. I just think that this leads to um people who lack certain skills, right? And lack certain understanding of how the world really works because they're kind of isolated from the world. I think this is another version of the billionaire thing. Like if you're a billionaire's kid and all you've ever known is the billionaire life, being a billionaire's kid and all this money and all this kind of stuff and it's just you're just so far removed from normal people that if you were to say start doing commentary on stuff, some of it would just be kind of like, I don't know, I think you know what you're talking about, right? That's Anna talking about a lot of stuff she talks about. She talks about stuff that we normal people have to deal with, and it shows her ignorance of these things, right? I think she was mentioning, to give a specific example, she's talking about the housing stuff, and I usually don't like her housing takes. She, I think, is a big promoter of the evil landlord, and that kind of rhetoric led to my financial devastation. It's people like her that promoted those types of things, the types of policies that ruined me. But here she is again, still ignorant as ever. She's talking about a true thing, that there's apartments in the New York City area that are empty. Um, and I thought she was going to talk about the thing like Billionaires Row, where the apartments are really looked at as almost like a kind of an asset class in terms of being like safes. Because what people don't realize, like a bank account, you have $250,000 insurance, but if you have $300,000, that means what is that, 100, what is it, it's 250,000. So 300,000. So that's like $50,000 that's not insured, right? And it just gets worse and worse the more money you have. You put your money in your bank account, 250,000 of it's insured. So what happens when you have 100 million, 200 million, 300 million? You can't just throw it in the bank, right? You need to put it in some kind of insurable asset, right? That's where it gets into doing things like buying art and buying multiple mansions and even cars. Some guys will collect cars, and there'll be rare cars, like maybe there's you buy a one of 10 car that's like $2 million, and then you hardly ever drive it because it's not really a car. It's really it's a vehicle for you to store your money, because that car you buy is insured. And if it's a rare car, potentially it appreciates, so it's almost like you're investing in a stock. But the real thing that I heard about was a Billionaires Row, where you try to get these Saudi princes or whatever that need places to park their money, right? So they buy these expensive multi-million-dollar apartments. I think some are like $20 million, and then they don't even really use it, but it's an asset, right? And perhaps it appreciates in value. I think that's the expectation. And then it's also protected by some kind of insurance, right? And that's the way it works. And there's even tax things. They might be doing tax things or whatever, but that's not what she was talking about. She says landlords having empty apartments, and then they just so happen to, charge like $40 for application fees, and then they just deny applicants. So the idea is, I have an apartment that's empty, and I just put it on the market, but I'm not really trying to rent it. And I have people coming in, and they're paying me $40 a pop, and I just say, denied, and I'm making money. Now, that is just a classic example of just how ignorant she is, and how she doesn't know what she's talking about, and how isolated she is from the real world. Not quite like a billionaire, but it's kind of like that, right? It's just same thing like a billionaire. They don't understand apartments and whatever. Like, this is like something they don't even think about, right? But here's the reality. Apartments in the New York City area are, I think they're approaching like an average of $3,000 a month. Do you have any idea how many applications you would have to take in at $40 a pop to make it worth it to have it empty? So you have an asset that's worth about $3,000 a month. But instead of getting that $3,000 a month in income from the apartment, you keep it empty, and then you have people coming in, and and that's time as well, right? Someone has to be dealing with the applications and dealing with people and answering questions, and you go through all of that. So somehow that $40 a pop is going to pay for the salary of the people who are handling the applications, because, I would hope a landlord that has all these properties is not doing that himself. But anyway, but still, time is money. Even if the landlord is doing it himself, like if he's taking his time to do the applications, I mean, that's worth something, right? But how many applications would it take for me to make $3,000? A hell of a lot more applications than I would ever be getting, right? And then on top of that, as far as I know, you're limited to $20 as a fee. I think there's a law you can't even charge $40. Now, if I'm wrong, let me know. So it sounds like she's saying something that's not even true. You can't charge $40, right? It's $20, which makes it even worse. How many applications at $20 a pop would make sense to do? I did some basic math, and I think the number that came up with was like 25 apartments, $75,000 a month in value. And then if you were just doing applications, now you're making less than $3,000. So instead of making $75,000 on 25 apartments, you're going to make less than what one apartment would rent for, because it makes sense to just get the application fees, and then you're also looking at the value of it appreciating in it. Like, what? Like, what is she talking about? I'm just like, holy shit. What are you talking about? Man. And then this is somebody who is informing and educating people who will vote for and support policies that end up ruining people's lives like mine, right? Like, if you really care about housing, take the time to educate yourself about how it really works, and stop talking out of your ass, right? With this like stuff you see on Twitter or whatever. Oh, and then I point this out in the comment section, and someone's telling me something about, oh, you have to multiply the fee by the amount of apartments. Like, somehow in their brain, they thought that made sense. That somehow, $40. Again, this is almost like a billionaire type of thing. Like, a billionaire might think this way. That's like a billionaire that doesn't know how much bread costs. It's just like a billionaire that may think that, like, not having any idea how much somebody makes who works at like Walmart. Like, they think like Walmart, you could work at Walmart and as a manager, you probably make like, I don't know what, like $200,000. Like, oh shit. You think a Walmart manager's making 200 grand? You know what I mean? So same thing. Like, you think that $40 fee for applications is somehow gonna make you more money than renting out the apartment that's worth, like, each one is worth 3,000. But again, that guy thought that the gotcha was, oh, you have to multiply the applications by the amount of apartments. Like, it still doesn't make any sense, dude. We're talking about $40 a pop versus $3,000 per apartment per month. Like, hello. And some of them are more than that, like $3,500. Like, that's where rents are in the New York City area. Like, no one wants to have an apartment and pay mortgage, pay maintenance, pay people to be dealing with applications or whatever, to be just getting in application fees. Now, might a small landlord do something like that, perhaps to make a little quick cash? That's something that's more making sense. So, not that that's a good idea or a good strategy, but I could see that happening, right? Because you have an apartment that's empty, maybe you're looking for the perfect tenant, and it's like $0, or maybe I make, I don't know, $200 or $300 in application fees. I mean, that's not a lot of money, but it's something. And to a small landlord, like that's something where, like that's me, a small landlord, and $300 is not going to do much for me. But especially in the situation I'm in now, an extra $300, like I could use that. You know what I mean? I could use that. But even that still doesn't make any sense. That would be something that you're doing for a short term. Like you're trying to find a tenant and it's taking longer than you expected. And you're looking for ways to make a little bit of money in the meantime, because right now you're not making any money. So it's a big liability, right? But the way she described it was like long-term thing. Like I'm just going to have this apartment empty for like, maybe years. And then I'm just making application fees. Like, what are you talking about, Anna? Like, holy shit. Anyway, that was kind of a tangent. That's not what this video was about. Jock says she's never worked, man. I think a lot of these YouTubers have never worked, man. And then they start talking stuff. I don't know, man. And it's like bits of truth, but it's also a lot of like misinformation. It's almost like a kid that doesn't understand how the real world works, and they talk stuff like based on how they feel, but they don't really know what the real deal is. I mean, that's just one final point. So like, she talks very negatively about like corporate jobs and managers and working for people. And there's truth to that. There's a lot of people working jobs they don't like just to survive. There's also a good amount of people that do like their jobs, and do have good environments. I mean, I'm one of those people. I have been able to selectively work at better companies. Like I've been in situations where I'm looking for a job, and I mean, things have been a lot different now than in the past. But in the past, when it was a thing, like multiple job offers, I would have one person offering, significantly more money, and then the environment seems kind of sucky, and then another person offering less money, but it seems like a cool manager, and I go with the cool manager with the less money. I've always done that as much as I can. That doesn't, I don't always have the luxury, but I think generally speaking, I've worked at pretty good companies. I think without me spending a lot of time, thinking too deeply, I can say at least since the last trend or trek that I've been on, I would say started in 2018. So in 2018, I was working for a really awesome company. I had a pretty cool boss. The team I was on, the great guys. I remember our manager used to come in and he would be smiling and joking around and stuff. And if I can give you guys a tip, the company was actually a European company. And if you're looking for the best potential working experience, that might be the avenue towards it. Because in these companies, because if they're a European-based company, you get the best of both worlds. You get the US money, so you get the bigger money that we make versus in those European countries, but then you get the European benefits, right? So like, I'll give you an example. So in that company, I was getting probably 6 or 27 days vacation. There's months of paternity leave. I mean, these are the things that you hear in like progressive media talking about how they do this in Europe and we need to have this here. Well, we do it here. You just have to work for those European companies, because I don't know if it's a legal thing, because that's how things are in their country, and if the company is based there, I don't know how it works. I don't know what the stories behind it. All I know is I've benefited from European benefits, working in the United States, just working for European companies, and those have been some of the best companies I've worked for in my entire career. I've been working for 25 plus years, and the European companies way better experience than the American companies. But even the American companies, I've worked for some pretty good ones as well. I've had a lot of good bosses. Now it's not all been perfect. The last job I had, my boss was, whew, he was mental, man. He was mental. He would I don't know, man. Let's put it this way. We got to the point where things got so bad that and this was during like COVID, where I literally started on we were doing hybrid, so in the days I was in the office, I literally found out that there was another floor where you could sit on these desks, like it's like shared desks, and I just started going there. um uh he was actually more like a team lead. He was like a team lead slash manager. So I don't think I was necessarily communicating with him when I was in the office. So it was kind of a little bit invisible to him, because I would be in the office, but he doesn't know I'm in the office because I'm on another floor, because I can't sit next to him because he's like nuts. Like I get along with almost everyone. Like I am such an easygoing person, but this guy was just so ridiculous where I just couldn't talk to him. Like there was no reasoning with this person. So I've had experiences like that. I had another boss, 2006. It was an army guy, and he was tough to work for. He was just so, I don't know, so rigid, and we just butt heads so much. But then I actually, that was back in the day of Google, was it Google Answers or something like that? I actually was so desperate, I consulted one of those services, paid someone to help me with conflict resolution. And I guess it worked, because in the end, we actually became pretty cool. Like we actually got, we found that we had similar interests, and we were like pretty friendly. But in the beginning, it was really bad. It was really, really bad. I mean, if I'm going online paying Google answers for answers because I can't get out of my boss. So point is, it's not been perfect, but overall, I definitely enjoy the work that I do, and most of the places I've worked at, um, I've actually worked for good teams. But you listen to someone like Anna, and it's just everyone's miserable, everyone hates their job. Corporate America sucks, and she's very like antisocial as well. She talks about stuff like, you know, uh, you know, uh, like company events, like, oh, I don't want to go to and I understand people are like that. But some of us actually like that stuff. Like I not so much now as I'm older, but I definitely used to really like company outings. Like we would go out and hang out at some bar or whatever it is. These are people that I spend most of my life with, right? So you develop relationships, you develop some kind of a friendship sort of thing, and it's nice to be able to spend time with them that's not business, right? Just like hanging out or whatever. But again, let Anna tell it, and corporate jobs suck, and all bosses suck, and it's all miserable, and corporations are just horrible. But you know there's a little bit more to it than that, shall we say. And goes on Megyn Kelly, Glenn Beck, PragerU, and Ben Shapiro. I one thing one thing yeah, you say that what was this expression, see me and come live with me. I would say that one video that I always wanted to make and I didn't make, and maybe I'll finally make it now, because I didn't see a lot of people talking about this. There was a critical moment, a major red flag. It was kind of something laid bare about Anna Kasparian. This was kind of the beginning of her transition to where she is now. She did that interview with Ben Shapiro. And interestingly enough, I think it was within the first minute or two of that interview. In my view, she kind of exposed herself. It's been a while since I saw that interview, but if I remember correctly, Ben Shapiro exposed himself in how fraudulent his content is and what he does. And he tried to normalize it and act like we all do this. But the interesting thing that I picked up on that I didn't hear anyone talk about is that she didn't challenge him, right? So what he said was something to the effect of that we all, I don't remember the exact details, but it was something like he was highlighting how, we'll take, this is exactly what he does, right? So let's talk about what Ben Spear does, because this is what he mentioned. He acknowledged it as if it's just like, this is how the business works. And she didn't say, no, 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 that's not how I do things. So he basically mentioned, like, so I'm a conservative commentator. So what's going to make me money is attacking the left and saying how ridiculous they are. So let me go online and see the most ridiculous left-wing person doing something crazy, right? And I'm going to hyper focus on that, and I'm going to keep focusing on the most ridiculous people on the left. So I'm basically focusing the attention on the most extreme of the left, which almost gives the impression that this is the left, as opposed to these are just freaks, right? That most people on the left probably wouldn't agree with. So that's what he does. And he basically acknowledged in that interview, early in the interview, he says something like that. And he says it in a way like, this is how this works, right? This is how we do it. Not for himself. He's saying this is like the norm of, doing this commentary business. That's how it works. That's just is what it is. And Anna Kasparian sat there, and whatever she did, which I think was nothing, it was absolutely not her shutting that down and saying, no, 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 that's what you do. That's not what we do. And it doesn't have to be confrontational, right? Don't say nothing about what Ben Shapiro does. Just him lumping you in with this disingenuous, like, divisive strategy, which is profitable, like him lumping you in with that, at least separate yourself and say, no, 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 I don't agree with that. That's not how we do stuff on the Young Turks. She never said that. So we have to either think that she did not care enough to comment about it, or she's using the same strategy as what Ben Shapiro does. She is not as bold as him to acknowledge it and say, like, yeah, that's how it works. Because she didn't say that. She didn't agree with him, but she didn't disagree with him either. She just lets. But the thing is, it's not about. It'd be one thing if he just says that, like that's what we do on Daily Wire, and she chooses, like, maybe strategically, I'm not gonna be confrontational. I don't feel like commenting about that thing. I'm gonna focus on other stuff. That'll be one thing. But when he lumps you in with it, and he didn't say specifically her, I don't think, but he made a statement that made it sound like this is the norm in this industry. I'm not quite sure what happened to the live stream. And didn't come to fight. She saw demonstration. I forgot what I was saying. My phone completely died on me. I need to pay more attention to my my battery level. It's actually about to die on me again because I have it unplugged. Anyway, boomer live stream. Anyway, until next time, this is Baby Channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. I apologize. I don't even remember what I was saying because quite some time between then and now. So sorry about that. Anyway, until next time.